With the college football playoff national championship game to be played on Monday night, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Ohio State Buckeyes have had an interesting path of getting here. But yet you have to pick your storylines. These two teams have also had its share of storylines. From the Scam Newton referring to the Irish as needing to get in a conference and having an easy road to get here, or whether it's Paul Weinbaum's take of Ryan Day needing to be relieved of his job. Both teams have had to withstand adversity from the beginning to the very end of its journey. And now, with only one prize left, which team will take home the big trophy and end all of the talk on top? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all so much for joining us on this edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Of course, I am Mr. CeeLo, and I am so glad to bring you the final preview of this 2024-25 season in the 25 National Championship game. I'll tell you, it's been really fun so far. But before we get into a little bit of housekeeping, you guys, I do want to give my send out my sincerest prayers to all of those affected by the fires out in LA. And we pray that all of you are safe and that those that lost homes there, we pray that you guys are safe and in a place where you can possibly rebuild and get back to some sense of normalcy. We'll be thinking about you. But as we go along, I also have some comments to refer to, as well as my boy Brad, whom once again is always giving his fair take. Cool shades. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Amen to that as well, brother. I'm one of the few still sporting my dog gear. Hey, bro, listen, I am not surprised. That does not surprise me, and that is cool. You should sport your dog gear. A lot of dog fans have not been happy with myself because I have been sporting all of my Notre Dame sweaters and whatnot, but that's pretty awesome to hear. Just see you smile and laugh, brother, makes my day. LOL, ND still rocks. Yeah! I feel the same way, bro. Just to see you smile and whatnot, even though I kind of had to put a frown on your face this year. But guess what? Weinbaum is still talking good about you. And Scam Newton is too. Hey, man, keep working. Keep doing your thing. Saying he's on the other side of the state working. Listen, I know it exactly. Picking the Buckeyes. Ooh. Picking the Buckeyes. And say, Penn State had me scared. Now, I'm not going to kid you. I will honestly tell you, I was a little bit concerned about the Penn State game, and that being Notre Dame Penn State. And I will tell all of you, when I saw Steve Angeli come out there, when Riley Leonard got hurt, I had no concern. I'm going to be honest with you now. When they brought Riley back in the second half, I kind of did have my concern because Penn State was shook. They were shook. If any of you guys watched the game in its entirety and you saw when Steve Angeli came in the game and was just pushing the ball down the field, I will say this. If Notre Dame gets in trouble Monday night, I think we should go to Angeli and leave Riley Leonard to strictly inside the red zone, because ultimately when Angeli got down there, he got bogged up. He got bogged down. I would not be surprised if we went to a two QB spot this week. I would love to see that. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but just let you guys know, I would do that Monday if I had to. Let Angeli lead me down the field, and as soon as we got inside the red zone, bring on Riley. You think Riley Leonard would care? Let us see what else old Brad said to me. I got faith in Ryan Day will screw it up against ND. I'm not going to say he's going to necessarily screw it up, Brad, but I will tell you, Texas was very close to winning that game. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The way Georgia manhandled Texas, and I'm going to be honest with you, Texas had their opportunities against Georgia. And I know what people are going to say. You can't compare apples to apples. You can't apples to oranges. What you can do, you can look at where Texas struggled against Georgia and look at what Notre Dame didn't struggle with. Now, I get it. Notre Dame had a few big plays. But see, here's the thing. You have to understand where a team's weaknesses are. And I can tell you right now, looking at this, the way Texas played against them and how they were able to stay in this game, I think a little bit of Ohio State is overstated. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get into the breakdown, shall we? Thank you, Brad, so much for all your comments. I hope you're doing excellent, my friend. Got to catch up soon. Want to give a big gab out to my man Shane. He hit me up yesterday. Keep staying on that comedy roll, buddy. I'm coming. I'm show you soon. But let's get into the national championship game, shall we? Hadn't seen me do that in a while. As we look at the final two teams standing, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Ohio State Buckeyes. The one thing that I want to get out right now, the college football playoff system works for all you crybabies. This was the one thing that I said on one of my shows was the best thing about it. And I think me and you talked about it, Brad, and I think a couple of us off camera have talked about it. You get what the NBA and the NFL call, not necessarily parity, but opportunities. Everybody sat there and they looked at that first round. To me, the reason why the first round was so lopsided, it wasn't because of the competition. It was because the opposing, the bottom home team got to play in their stadium. And I've said this many times before. You would have taken the national championship, put it in South Bend, put it in Columbus. You almost would have gotten the same result. People do not understand how valuable home field is. It's invaluable. You cannot put a price on what or how much of an advantage home field advantage is. And I get really tired of trying to explain this to people. They don't understand the fact that when you play in your building, I don't care if you even the stakes out at all. That's your building. Let's say you take Oregon and bring them, let's say you take, that's not a good example. Let's say you take a Florida team and bring them all the way up to South Bend. Not exactly typical weather that you want to play in. And a lot of people say, well, you can play in the elements. Well, let's do the role reversals. Let's take somebody that plays in Denver and bring them down to Miami. So I think ultimately there needs to be some type of switch there. It's great that you can do that, but ultimately it's hard to sit there. You're already saying you got a 12th ranked team facing off against a 5th ranked team. So you kind of put people behind the 8 ball a little bit. It's already, they're massively out overmatched by the team that they're playing, but then they have to go into their building and try to pull an upset. Now, I get it. I know what people are going to say. There shouldn't be that much of a gap because the first, second, third, and fourth best team is supposed to have the bye, which they don't. We all know that. But I'm going to say Arizona State surprised some people. Could you imagine what would have happened had that game been played in their building? Just saying. I'm a firm believer. I think these teams should have the option. I don't think anybody would argue, hey, I'd rather that extra week of playing. Now, I know a lot of people will say, I want that automatic bid. I think playing that extra game, especially in your building, gives you an incentive because guess what? You win that game, not only do you get that extra money, per se, but then you get extra momentum. You can't tell me when Ohio State walked out against Tennessee, the pressure was not on them. Tennessee got through that one, and it was like, okay, they got that one out the way. Because that game was massive. Every eyeball in America was on that game. Not just Buckeye and Volunteer fans. The whole country's eyes were on that one. Because really, Ryan Day's job was on the line. Not just Ohio State's season, but his job. Now, as I said on the show last week, guys, y'all heard me say this. I thought Texas was going to pull the upset. And, like, the argument can be made for Notre Dame on every moment. Quinn Ewers has shown he's not steady in the pocket. He's got happy feet. And, I don't know. He just has no sense of the pocket. And I've been saying this since the Georgia game. Defenses that get after him scare him. I'm not saying he's scared, but I can tell you these defenses scare him. And honestly, two things beat Texas in that game. One was the fact that you don't throw an 8-yard toss play when you're 1 yard on the goal line. And the fact remains is that you get up under center. Notre Dame's not afraid to do that. But let's get into the details. As Paul Weinbaum says that Notre Dame's going to be blown out of this game. Now, he's already been wrong twice about Notre Dame. Already been wrong twice. And then he went talking sweet nothings on Get Up, and I think it was First Take. Then, of course, Scam Newton is basically not impressed with Notre Dame because they ain't in a conference. Well, guess what, buddy? We know you're not that intelligent because why join a conference when Notre Dame has already got 16 stacks in their pocket? What your alma mater got? Hardly nothing. I find it funny for a guy who always talks about being hated on, you doing the hating right now. If anything, you should be saying power to them instead of being a full-fledged hater. The hate is real. Hater alert! Hater alert! Yeah. But let's look at the game from Ohio State's offense to Notre Dame's defense. Now, arguably, you've got two defenses. You got a defense that is similar to the Texas defense. I would argue that Notre Dame blitzes a large number of more times than the Texas defense does. And I know what Al Golden wants to do. Everybody in the country knows what Al Golden wants to do. But the reality of it is, will this be the one game that, like he did at the Penn State game, he showed blitz more and backed out of it, which, as a Notre Dame fan, it just makes me feel so good because the reality of it is, he confused Drew Aller. And I don't see Will Howard as being much different. If you guys remember in that Penn State-Ohio State game, Will Howard was just as pedestrian as Drew Aller was. Will Howard was a little bit better. But maybe that's because he had better wide receivers. And I'm going to be honest with you. The receivers for Ohio State are going to have to come up big. Going to have to come up big. And Chip Kelly's going to have some serious cards up his sleeve to fool this Notre Dame secondary. And I'm going to be honest with you, the poker game between Al Golden and Chip Kelly is going to be interesting because I think Al Golden is going to come out of his 45% blitz rate this game. I'm not saying he's going to blitz more. I'm not saying he's blitzing less. But I think he's going to blitz when they least see it coming. And I think they're going to drop back. They're going to confuse the dickens out of daggum Will Howard. I think it sets up for mistakes. Xavier Watts is going to have to tackle well because ultimately what's going to happen Chip Kelly's not going to get in a situation where he's going to want to challenge this Notre Dame defense deep very often. But what he's going to want to try to do is establish Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Those are the two guys you're going to have to establish. Now, when you look at the Texas game, nobody had really any impressive numbers. When you look at what the Longhorns were able to do, well, Howard had over 200 yards passing, but 75 of them came on that screen pass. I will say this. I think ultimately that screen game could work against him. I think Golden's going to have to be very aware of that. Because needless to say, I get it. You want to give as much help as you can. But I think delayed blitzes are going to be just as important as your regular blitzes. You're going to have to play a lot of guess and go. You're going to have to play with Chip Kelly and have him on his heels. Have him debating whether I should call this, whether I should call that. Because ultimately, when they ran that screen in the second quarter, you look at how Texas's defense was set up. They were set up on, we're not going to give up the field goal. And here they came with the screen pass, and then outset of, I think it was 1 or 2 missed tackles and a possible holding penalty on that. It was not called. You find yourself in a situation where instead of going down to score that touchdown in the fourth quarter to tie the game, Texas could have been in a situation to win the game. So you ultimately had a 28-point swing there. Whereas Texas could have not only, well, it wouldn't have been, it would have been a tie game going in the second half. And ultimately, Ohio State would have needed something to take the lead back. So it would have been a 21-14 game as opposed to a 21-21 tie. Because, of course, you would not have had the scoop and score for a touchdown. So you're talking about a whole entirely different football game had that not happened. I'm sorry, did I say 28? I think it was 21-point swing. So, needless to say, regardless of what Weinbaum says, he's saying, oh, I think Texas was this and Georgia was that. Well, Notre Dame beat Georgia. Regardless of how you want to put it. Turnovers are a part of the game, Weinbaum. Part of that you don't get. And Notre Dame is the number 1 team in turnovers. Get this. Notre Dame lost the turnover battle to Penn State and still won the game. Did not play a really good football game. So I don't understand where your logic is coming. And let's rewind. This was just last year that Notre Dame and Ohio State went the distance. And it would not have been, had it not been for 10 men on the field for Notre Dame, they win that game, I would argue. Yes, I would argue that. Because that space where he ran in, that would have been a defender there. Yes. And Henderson barely squeaked his way past that defender. He wasn't getting past 2. Thank you. Good night. Weinbaum. And this is the thing. I don't like guys who think they know the game. You're just a analyst that pushes the Southeastern Conference narrative. And then you have the nerve to wonder why when the Southeastern Conference is beaten up like this, you get on your little stupid little microphone showing why people are feeling some type of way about the SEC because of this and this, that. It's because of people like you. People like you. If you keep your trap shut and just state the facts and stop trying to glorify a certain conference, one that's paying your wage, maybe people wouldn't have such disdain for you or who you're rooting for. Everybody knows you're biased. I mean, you can sit here and talk about the money that's been paid out by Ohio State, but the SEC was doing it for years. Oh, those are rough accusations, aren't they? It's mighty funny now. The SEC teams like Alabama and Georgia don't have the depth charts they used to have until either. That's why y'all hate it so much. That's why y'all hate the NIL. But that's a topic for another show. Back to the game. I truly think Jeremiah Smith is a great wide receiver, but I think He and Emeka Egbuka, these guys, now let's not forget, last year, Notre Dame had to face off against Marvin Harrison. Oh, yeah. Now, I get it. McCord was the quarterback. But I don't see much difference between him and Will Howard. I'm not sold on Will Howard. I'm just not, you guys. You know, the thing is, he's got really good wide receivers around him. He makes decent throws at times. I'm not going to take that from him. But I believe when he's rattled, that's going to do it. And I think the one thing that Al Golden's going to have to look out for that could have actually hurt Notre Dame is going to be Will Howard's legs, because that's what he did at Kansas State. And he was very good at that. Ryan Day and Chip Kelly have gotten him into the groove of throwing the football, not scrambling. And the last couple of weeks, he's gotten into this little movement where he's moving out of the pocket, making plays. That's where there's going to be trouble. If Notre Dame can't get him on the ground, initial contact, they're going to be in trouble, because Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka and Tate, they're able to get open. And not to mention, Travion Henderson is not a bad receiver out of the backfield. I'm not saying you have to play a perfect game, because ultimately they played a perfect game against Georgia. Well, almost. But I look at defensively. When I look at this football team, I say you got to be disciplined. Will Howard's not going to throw a perfect deep ball every play. Xavier Watts is going to be huge. If he doesn't see run, he's got to make sure he picks the right side, because Ohio State has no bones about wanting to throw it down the field. However, Will Howard will hesitate if he doesn't see what he likes. He has been known to throw it late. And Jeremiah Smith made some wonderful plays in that Oregon game. He went up to get it, but here's the difference. Oregon Ducks don't have guys that will plant you. Xavier Watts will plant you. Ryan Clark will plant you. Ron Hurd will plant you. Notre Dame's got some hitters in that secondary. And Smith may not want to go up against those guys, because they will plant you. They will go up and bring you down. With that said, let us flip to the Notre Dame offense versus the Ohio State defense. Now, there is no doubt that Ohio State has got a slew of guys going to the NFL. Sawyer is the one guy, in my opinion, that you have to account for every play. The other guys, yes, you do have to account for them, but Sawyer he's like the guy when it comes to playmaking. And Ohio State has become more of a blitz team this year. I think ultimately Notre Dame is going to have to get on the outside. They love to run it up in between the tackles. Do I think they can do that? Texas did not have a lot of success. I think they're going to have to do like they've done the last two playoff games. I think Mike Denbroke's done a great job giving Jaden Thomas that reverse on third down. I mean, that wide receiver handoff on third downs. I think we need to run that at least 3 or 4 times. The only difference is we need to hand it to the running back. Get Ohio State's defense flowing, and then run the running back up the middle. And we've had great success against Georgia and Penn State. I'm just going to be honest with you. The best front that I've seen is Georgia. I don't think Ohio State's is the best. And people will say that $20 million team and this, that, and the other. Look, the truth of the matter is that Ohio State has flaws. Yeah, they might be playing good football, but the reality of it is you can't cover everything. It's a guessing game. Ultimately, Notre Dame's going to have to guess right. And I believe that there's going to be a play on special teams that's going to be had. Whether it's a block kick, or whether it's a kick return or a punt return for a touchdown. Or maybe set up something. I haven't seen much from Ohio State special teams. I will say this, that they had in the Indiana game, they had a drop punt that, aided them. I think Notre Dame is going to try to find every situation they can, which is why Marcus Freeman is that guy. He gets his team motivated. And he also helps his team to understand that every time the ball is snapped, it's an opportunity to score. Special teams is not a chance just to take plays off. You got certain starters that are out there playing on special teams for that very reason. I think the injury to Anthony Knapp is huge, but then there's a possibility that we get to see the season debut, even though he played a little bit in the Penn State game, of Charles Jagasaw. Now, for many of you who don't know who this is, he was our 5-star tackle that injured his pectoral, and it was his pectoral or his bicep. One of the two, but he's back. He injured it early in camp. But this guy made Anthony Knapp look like a baby. Anthony Knapp played very well in his place. Now, I know what people are going to say. Well, he hasn't played all season. Very true. And what a way to get back. Well, ultimately, the way you do that is you allow him to maul whatever's in front of him. He's a great pass blocker, but he's just as good run blocking. Now, he could be the difference in this game. Reason being is he is a big physical guy, 6'7", over 300 pounds. Very, very long arms. And ultimately, if Notre Dame can lean on Ohio State and run the football, it's going to be a long day, because the reality of it is the longer Will Howard and this defense sits on the sideline, the longer they're going to be impatient, and Will Howard's going to want to push the ball. This is where you want him to be. And if Notre Dame can establish any type of a run game, whether it's Riley Leonard or Jeremiah Love, I think the most important player in this game is going to be not Jaden Greathouse, not Jeremiah Love, not Aeneas Williams, not Bo Collins, but it's going to be Jadarian Price. This is a guy who has been relatively silent. I think ultimately this is going to be a situation where Denbro's going to have to trust him a little more. And I think you need to put Price and Love out there at the same time. I have no doubt that Notre Dame is going to use somebody other than Faison, other than Jaden Greathouse, other than Bo Collins. This is going to be... Notre Dame has a group of wide receivers that would possibly be number 2s or possibly even number 1s. Everybody was like, oh, look at Greathouse. Where's he been? It's the quarterback. The system that we have is... The system that Notre Dame runs is not predicated on a system of throwing the football, because that's not Riley Leonard. I will say this. It would not surprise me if Notre Dame swapped it up. If Riley Leonard got out there in 2 drives and could not get it done. Because what does Steve Angeli bring to the party? He can actually throw that thing. And then what happens is you get in a situation where you got to actually play the pass more efficiently. Because Angeli will rock that thing. And then that brings in a guy whom I really love and wished they used and utilized him more. 6'5" Deion Colzie. And the reality of it is, when I hear all of these guys say this guy didn't work out at this school or he didn't work out at this team, a lot of it is coaching. A lot of it is coaching. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I love Marcus Freeman, but there's been a lot of receivers that have come through here that have not matched their potential. And the reason being is it ain't them. You as a coach have to get the best out of these players. Just saying. Just saying. I think it's going to be another wide receiver that steps his game up. And I think ultimately there's going to be another Jaden Greathouse type guy performance. We don't know who it's going to be. It could be Faison, could be Jaden Greathouse, could be Bo Collins, who's questionable. Could be Chris Mitchell. I mean, I was listening to Locked On Irish the other night saying Chris Mitchell didn't pan out. No. We don't have a throwing offense. Stop saying these receivers don't work out. If the quarterback behind the controls doesn't pull the trigger, how is it that it's that receiver's fault that it didn't work out?
What a dumbass.
Could be Jaden Thomas. We going to say Jaden Thomas didn't work out? We got a lot of guys on this team that could be elite players on other teams. I don't care what anybody has to say. Just you got to look at who your quarterback is. Jeremiah Smith's been a piece of good of what he could have been. Think of if he had C.J. Stroud throwing those balls to him. Exactly. But I'm taking Notre Dame by a point. Yep. taking Notre Dame by a point.
It's official. You suck.
I think we win it by a point. Something happens where either we go for 2 points or we kick a field goal to win it at the end. Mitch Jeter has been phenomenal. I think he's arguably been he's been a roller coaster ride of the year, but I think ultimately he kicks us to a national championship, and Marcus Freeman completes one of the most crazy stories that you could never create better than Rudy. And it would complete what has happened in the 3 years that everybody says about Notre Dame. Lou Holtz won his national championship in his 3rd year. Marcus Freeman would join him with his 3rd national championship. And all honor and thanks to the Almighty. But guys, let me know what you think. Who do you think is going to win the national championship, which will be taking place in Atlanta? Give me it down in the comments. Let me know what you think about it all. Please let somebody other than Brad comment. No offense to you, Brad. Also, make sure you go to the Facebook page and the Facebook group of the same name, Gridiron Gab Triple Option, and make sure you sign up to be a part of the group, as well as join the group and join the page. Finally, make sure you go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo and catch up with me and find out all of the shenanigans that I will be caught up in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.